Okay, so with that, last night I tried installing Bazzite. Went pretty smoothly, and I kind of like it. This is what really won me over, honestly. Like,
We can't see anything.
why not?
The stream he's got going in the upper left hand corner.
Never mind, I'm just dumb. No, I was looking at your face, that's all. It's a me problem.
Can you guys see my desktop?
Yes.
What am I looking at right now?
Your color.
It looks KDE system.
Okay.
Everything
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so once I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, I like this. They have one option in there that will use the old Steam user interface colors. Like, I think this is from like before Half-Life 2. That green and yellow kind of military theme that fits Half-Life very well. I thought this was really cool when I saw it. So Bazzite, it's kind of like Winamp, and the thing is, like, this is actually exactly what I told. I told Canonical that they should do basically this like 10 years ago, and I'm not even saying that might not necessarily have been good advice for them, but that was just like kind of what I would like to see. But somebody's actually doing that now. Bazzite seems pretty cool so far. It seems that the consumer market is no longer, we have the imaginary economy and the real economy, and it seems like the real economy can no longer keep up with the imaginary economy. So like Microsoft is no longer interested in the consumer market. It seems like, and that's kind of a theme across the entire economy, across tech right now. So it's rather easy right now for anybody to walk in and just listen to customers and give them what they want. So yeah, Bazzite is interesting because they're actually I mean, there are a couple of others, I think, but this is really like the first time anybody's ever like made an operating system specifically designed. The fact that they're even trying to do anything for video games is really significant. Like, I mean, yeah, nobody else is even trying, it seems like. So yeah, so it's based on Fedora. So DEB packages won't install on it. That's a problem because most, when you download a program for Linux, mostly things are being distributed in Debian packages. I don't know if those install on Fedora at all or not, or if it's just a Bazzite thing. So getting software onto the system I would say, is non-optimal. I wasn't able to install Discord and Visual Studio Code, but that was just by searching in the menu, and I'm not exactly sure like where those even came from. So there's still some issues. I mean, they still haven't figured out like how to even like what's the right way to even install software on Linux. And I think they should only have the KDE version. I think they should get rid of the GNOME version. The reason for that is basically creativity is the process it's a long string of answers of saying no. Creativity is a long string of decisions where you're saying no to things. You're saying all the things that a thing is not, so that you can decide what you're actually making. And I deal with this in engine design. I deal with this in game design. It's like when you start out, it's like your thing can be anything, but if you don't decide what it is, you'll end up being nothing. So it's like if you have a lump of clay, you can say, well, is it going to be? And I want to make a statue out of this. Is it going to be an animal or a human being? Oh, I want it to be a human being. Okay. Do I want it to be realistic or stylized? Okay, I want it to be realistic. And now you've said no enough times that now you're like sculpting the clay, you're making the hair, and you're making like the skin look realistic and the musculature, and trying to make it, you're at a higher level of design. Whereas if you don't make those decisions, then you just stick with the lump of clay. And it's like, okay, well, it can be anything, but you never get an opportunity to, because you're refusing to make decisions, you don't get the opportunity to reach those more detailed, more refined design decisions that you make once you're willing to say no, all the things that a thing is not. That's how I see it. So in other words, I mean, if they just eliminated GNOME, it'll enrage like some percentage of their users, but like it doesn't matter, because if they just said, okay, this is a KDE based operating system, then in the future they can make more decisions that they can design things to work better with that system. In other words, I don't have anything specific in mind with KDE or something, but I'm just saying, like, as a general thing, like, lack of decision making is not, like, choice is not a good thing. Nobody wants choice. They just want something that works well. So that is one criticism I would make. But overall, like, it looks pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. And they just have a cool branding and a cool logo and a cool name. And the OS looks nice. So I'll probably start developing with this in the future. It's pretty cool. I like it. That's Bazzite. That's all I have to say about it for now. Do we have any questions about Steam machines or Linux stuff or Bazzite?
Yeah.
Bazzite is part of Universal Blue, which aim to be distro-less OS that can run software from any OS through containers. What does that mean? I don't want to read the documentation. If I have to read, it's like at that point it's over. I don't know what a container is, so. Well, I double clicked on it and nothing happened. It just opened it in like a zip file. Are you supposed to extract the files then, or do you do something else? That's the whole point. Like, if it's an operating system, I shouldn't have to read anything. It should just work in an intuitive way. Like, I want to do the absolute minimum amount of effort to use for the basic functioning of my operating system. I'm not interested in how it works. I'm interested in, I have plenty of other things I want to do, spend my time doing. I don't want to spend my time, learning an operating system. I don't want to learn anything. So that's kind of the approach I take. Like, if it doesn't just work, then I won't bother with it. And I guarantee you that's a lot more than your average user will give it. Like, if there's a problem, I'll like dig around and figure things out a little bit, but
makes me wonder if it's kind of like Apple, where it basically you just have to have a spot where you unzip the stuff to, and it just runs from that spot. You just have to label what that spot's going to run. It's the only way that I can describe it. So you would mark the folder as a Debian package, as an example. I haven't looked at the documentation yet. I'm just guessing, but basically it's almost like you create a location, you unzip everything to that location, and you mark that location as a type to run stuff from. But I'll have to read through documentation myself and see if that's what they mean.
Yeah, I actually checked in the opt folder, and that folder was empty, so I wasn't sure like where anything should be extracted to. And that was for Discord. I think I downloaded or it was either for Discord or Visual Studio Code, and then I just searched in the menu, and I found it there. There was like a link to install it, and I have no idea like where that came from. But I clicked on it and it just worked. I also tried to install Sea Lion, and it gave me a progress bar like for downloading it, and then once it got to 100%, it just stopped, and like the application I was in turned off. And then I did it again, and the progress bar like loaded up as it downloaded it, and then once it got to 100%, the program just shut down. So I wasn't able to install it. So I'm not really a fan of whatever they're doing with that. Yeah, I'm not going to read that. I'm just not. Sorry. I have like plenty of other things to do. Yeah, that's a problem with Linux. Like, they say like, "Oh, this is so great. This is so great. Everybody should be using it." And then when people come and use it, and I guarantee you, like, I'm putting more. I'm willing to put a lot more effort in, and I'm a lot more knowledgeable about Linux than the average person is. But when people do come in and they try it, and if they run into any problems, then the attitude then switches to, well, the excuses start. And it's like you can't if you're trying to deliver software, like you have to take responsibility for your software. You have to take responsibility for the user experience. And it's getting better, but that's just like, that's an attitude that really needs to change. Yeah, I mean, there's sort of like there's sort of like the approach I take as a developer, and then which is in that case I'm willing to dig in and learn the details that I need to learn, and I'll go to quite a lot of effort. And then there's sort of the attitude that I take as a user, and right now I'm not taking the developer attitude. I'm just taking the casual user attitude. So that's like where where that's coming from, like what I'm describing. Honestly, like they need more honest feedback like that. They need more feedback from people who are not willing to make a lot of effort, because that's how you make things better. So if that makes any sense, that's kind of like, that's how I'm taking this. I like, I like my first impression should just be like making minimal effort and just trying to do things without reading anything and just seeing what it does, and seeing if it works in a predictable manner, without making too much effort. That's kind of that's what I want my first impression's my first feedback to be based on. And then it's like, as a developer, I can always go back and, learn more.
I think if they do like Apple, to where you can just double click on the zip and then drag what looks like the program out wherever you want to put it on your drive in a shared space wherever, and then just double click on it to launch it because it's a contained object.
Mm-hmm.
With the launch command, they config in it so it knows what the first entryway is for it, and then it just runs everything from there. That would make life easy. Or right click on it and say install, in which case it puts it under like an applications folder and automatically sets up the container for you, so you don't have to do it. That might be the easiest way down the road, but I don't know what direction they're taking it.
Yeah. Yeah, so in general, like I'd say, like right now, based on what I've seen so far, I'd give it a thumbs up. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I guess that's really the biggest issue. Actually, is like getting software onto it, because they actually have a lot of. They have Bazaar, which is like a store, but it's not really a store. And then they have like Lutris, and I can't remember them all right now, but they have like a bunch of different things. Like Steam is the best system they have on there. Honestly, like the best way to use it is to just log into Steam and install anything you want on there. I haven't actually logged in through Steam yet because I have like 2FA and everything on my account, so it makes it more difficult to log in.
Is this natively or is this a VM?
I just installed it on a separate drive. Yeah, so I'd say okay. I would say like they should also package all the drivers with it. Like when you download it, you have to select which graphics card you have. So you have to select which graphics card you have, and then you have to choose KDE or GNOME. They should just make it KDE, and they should just include all the graphics drivers and just have one download. I mean, it's already 7 gigs, so if that pushes the download size up to 10 gigs, that's not really a big deal. It's just better to eliminate that choice. Yeah, I mean, people don't want to. A lot of people don't even know what they have, and the names are a little bit. The naming scheme is a little bit different. Than it's not exactly what people expect it to be. So, yeah, I would say like just have one download, and yeah, I'm not a fan of like having like a bunch of different confusing ways to install software. But having said that, it's pretty good. I think I'm gonna be running this for development. I like it. So that's my like very lazy first impression. Just trying to make the minimal amount of effort, trying purposely not to learn anything, just clicking around and seeing what happens. That's my first impression. And that's a lot more, I already know Linux, so that's actually like a lot more knowledgeable than you're going to get than what the average user. I'm just trying to like, kind of figure out what the average person, how the average Windows user is going to react. That's what I'm really doing. Choosing KDE or GNOME. I don't think it's good.
Yeah, not for new user experience. Like if a person doesn't know Linux, yeah, giving them a straight KDE, like Windows is Windows, right? Versus Windows 2.1 is an example.
What's Windows 2.1?
like the original board. I'm old, right? So the original Windows, you first booted into DOS before you typed in Win to launch Windows. It didn't just launch, right? So it was a
Hmm.
separate shell on top of DOS. I mean, it still is. It's just they auto force launching into an actual GUI because it didn't have a GUI back in the day, right? And then when Windows actually came out with with their GUI and they built it up from, I mean, it's like just the same thing with Linux, where you have KDE, GNOME, or Xterm, or whatever.
Yeah.
You're choosing what GUI you want for the thing. So if we force them into a single GUI, they'll never know the difference, which is great for an end user perspective because they just have one view to start with, um, and they don't know that there's like a plethora of others to possibly choose from for how it works and how everything integrates. But I kind of stick with Xterm myself as a personal preference. But yeah, if they just chose one to begin with and said, here, you're gonna start with KDE and keep, you could drop that 7 gig down to 1 gig by getting rid of all the fat. But like you mentioned before, and I think even like what Rekic mentioned, drivers, NVIDIA or whatever, they're gonna have their own flavor of everything. So, but it should auto detect and see what video card you have. They can do that, so they should at least
You
be
mean
able
on
to
the
go
on the
there.
website?
No, like yeah, during the install, like when you install in the package, when you're getting the software installed, they should be able to actually detect your hardware.
Oh,
I can write
do you mean downloading?
code
Do you
to
mean downloading it or installing it?
installing it. I mean, they just like you said, have it all in one 10 gig package download.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean,
during
what
the
if you're like
install,
me and you switch graphics cards all the time?
that right there, they should have on launch detect if there's been changes, right? And then if there's been changes, automatically go ahead and use the backside to download any missing drivers, right? I mean, they can do all this. This is
Yeah.
all doable.
I don't.
Something
I
like
don't.
that.
Yeah.
It's really
I don't have a problem. Like I don't think the goal should be to make the smallest download size possible because I mean it's 2026 now. Like that's not really that. Like downloading 10 gigs would not really be for an operating system. That's not really that bad. I mean, small. Yeah. Everything else aside, like smaller is better. But making your it's it's a choice between two. If you have to choose between two bad things, like having a bigger
yeah,
download
sizes.
is less bad.
Right. I get it. I mean, no, I remember back in the day when I had to create programs that fit with this 640K, right? Most of my programs I had to have about 512K. You tell that to someone nowadays, like, yeah, no, my games were running in 512K, and they were graphics, they were doing great, but now they're like, how's it less than a gig? Well, that's rather simple, but it's just space allocation nowadays is holistically different than what it was in the 70s. You know?
Hmm.
But I agree with you. It's a totally different world.
Yeah, so let's see. The ISO is big because they include every other hardware driver imaginable, so the single image works for everyone. That's good. I agree with that. Can rebase, Josh. It's a single command to switch from AMD to any other image. The single image idea is so that they can fix something once and then it works for everyone without every other person reading a config script. Yeah, that's probably good. Um, yeah, I mean the most important thing is that it just works for all your hardware. It did work. All my hardware worked perfectly, including my. Um, I just got a for testing. I just got a Razer Basilisk version 3. It's like a 1,000 updates per second, and I think it's like 2,600 DPI. It's pretty nice. I like it. These are on sale at Best Buy right now. It's like $35. I think they're 60 normally. BestBuy.com. Question mark. Affiliate equals Josh. No, not really. Yeah, yeah, I agree with. I think they did something good there. Like they should include as many drivers as possible. And if it's 10 gigs, it's only 7 gigs actually. But don't worry about the down. I mean, the download size is not that big of a problem. If you have 3 gigs of drivers that you don't ever use, that's fine. Hard drives are big. And it's still less than, the 30 gigs that Windows requires, so, or whatever it is. The hard drive is deduplicated too, so you save tons of space on everything else. What do you mean? What does that mean? The hard drive is deduplicated?
Now that would be interesting if they're actually searching for all directories of identical files and just putting pointers. That would be very interesting.
How often does that happen? Is that something that people... Is that something... One, is that something that any operating system actually does?
Currently, Windows doesn't do it. I don't know if it's... I don't know whether the Linux packages do it because they have to have an index of everything on the drive and then figure out if there is an identical file. Like I said, we got 5 files, all 1 gig as 5 gig, right? But 4 of them could be put back to a pointer, back to a master file. But if that master image gets deleted, then you've lost the actual file. So it'd be interesting to see how they handle that.
Does that actually save any space? Like in real usage, I mean, do hard drives typically have a lot of duplicate files?
Yeah, like okay, say for instance, how many games out there run with the C++ installs, right? And how many of those actually have certain libraries or certain things that are deeper inside their folders?
Oh, partial blocks, he says.
Oh,
He's not talking about whole files, he's talking about partial blocks. That's crazy.
Wow, I would really love to see how they're accomplishing that.
What percentage what do you think the average percentage savings is? Like what percentage of the hard drive space do you think gets saved by that? That seems like that is a crazy optimization. Is that practical? I would like to see statistics on that. That is just nuts. I mean that is a degree of hyper optimization that it seems really extreme, but I could also see it like in some situations. I could see it like being very beneficial in some situations. I'm just curious to see like how beneficial would that be in like normal usage? That would be very interesting to know. Yeah, if anybody finds out like statistics on that, I would be very interested in hearing that. I don't like reading. Just give me an AI summary. Communicate the results. Communicate it to me in a funny GIF. All right, thanks for joining us. Okay. Okay, all right, I will click on this, even though it's not in GIF form. Identical data blocks, track separately. So yeah, we're not talking about just entire files, we're talking about data blocks. That is crazy. How much space does deduplication save? Oh, that's stupid. That's, huh? Hmm. Request for success stories and empirical best practices. Eh. I think it's probably hard to get an exact number on that. Because I can easily imagine if you're running like a server, I could easily imagine, or if you have like some special use case, like if you're storing a bunch of like scientific or other data on a machine, I can imagine that saving a lot of space. I wonder like on the average like consumer like desktop, I wonder how much space that would actually save. Can you check on your system? Do they show you how much space it's saving? That's interesting. Yeah, I'd like to see some real world information on that because like if it's like a server that's storing a bunch of files for a website, I could see that like that could probably save a lot of space. Um, that is interesting. All right, let's see what Heisenberg says. Well, LeadWorks won't run with Proton. And rather than try to get it to work with Proton, I'd rather just do a native Linux build.
Well, I was more the reason I brought that up is I was more curious right now because I run a small VM of Bazzite within Windows, and funny enough, it still runs better than Windows on many things.
What things?
Mostly just various video games that I've tried. Like I got better performance in Baldur's Gate. I noticed I was getting better performance in Source Engine map compiling. I've
In a
tried
VM?
In a VM, which funny enough, but I would assume that's something to do with the pass-through setup I have. But it's really really optimized and really well done.
That doesn't sound
I,
possible.
I, I have an NVIDIA card, so I cannot do the Steam OS right now because they don't support NVIDIA.
That does not sound possible.
Some ordinary gamer has covered it on YouTube as well. Even his VMs do really well. It's pretty interesting stuff. That's why I was saying like if you run Bazzite as like a standard boot, I'd be curious to see what your statistics are between Windows and Bazzite, even if you are running through like Proton, because those would be very valuable for customers to be able to look at and be like, well, wait a minute. Even through a emulation kind of software, it's still getting better statistics than Windows. That sounds like something I would want want to do. And maybe you'd be helping Valve in those regards, getting people off Windows.
Have you done a like an actual install that's not a VM?
I had one on a previous drive, but I had to format that drive, and I'm actually about to set that up. I was thinking about doing that this week once I get a little better and I'm no longer sick. So
Yeah. Let's see. Running Bazzite with Proton, you should do logs. I have serious reasons for not doing native builds from other devs that move from native to Windows. Will be out of date in a few years max. Oh. What do you think the problems with native Linux builds are specifically? I'm curious to hear because I have some experience in this area. That's interesting. So he's actually saying that a Windows executable runs on Linux more reliably than a native Linux build will.
I would tend to kind of lean in that agreement as well. I've noticed that. Like I said, I did not expect the performance I got in the VM on Bazzite that I was getting, and I simply followed guides that I found from people on YouTube, and then I went on Reddit and a few other places, and I was getting better operations on a VM of Bazzite than through the native Windows, which is strange because my Windows is a fresh install, and I was very confused about that. It was like something's
Because
going
they're
on there.
they're uploading everything to Microsoft. That reason. That's interesting. So, like my experience with it, I have done native Linux builds before. The problem we had is I was doing this right around 2014, and this is when, of course, 64-bit CPUs had been around for, probably for some time by then, but Linux was really the transition from x86 to x64 on Linux was not particularly smooth, and Ubuntu. I think in 18.0, 18.10 or whatever, they stopped including the 32-bit binary like libraries with it, which was a big problem. So that's, and I guess probably a lot of distros did the same around the same time. Now LedWorks 4, the engine was written in C++, but the editor was written in a programming language called BlitzMax by Mark Sibley. And that's also the person who wrote Blitz 3D, which is what SCP Containment Breach is made with. But that only had a 32-bit compiler. So that's why I wasn't able to make a 64-bit build of the LedWorks editor, of the LedWorks 4 editor. Another problem I had is I was using GTK for the user interface. Now LedWorks 5, it's written in C++. It's only 64-bit, and it uses minimal libraries. I wrote the user interface, the GUI toolkit myself, so it's not relying on any third-party libraries. So for that reason, I expect that if like a native Linux build of LedWorks 5 would be very, very stable, and I expect it would be reliable for a long time without Proton or anything. But this is interesting what you're, let's see.
There's an interesting thing also there, Josh, that you could consider that I think Wreckage here and I are both kind of getting at. A native build would be fantastic, and then it would be very interesting to either be running Bazzite or SteamOS, where both would be supported, and then you would test how they operate across both, and then see how that is. Like have
You
one
know,
build that's the
like
Windows
comparing
build
Steam
running.
OS and Bazzite, or
Yeah,
comparing.
yeah, no. Having the Windows native build run it within both of those operating systems, and then running like the native build, and then comparing what the statistics say. I'd be very curious about those results. It'd be interesting if the Windows version running through Proton was faster, which would be very surprising. But
Well, it
it is
won't
an
run.
intriguing aspect to consider.
It won't run with Proton. I don't know why, but people have tried it and they say it doesn't work. It just crashes with
I have
Proton.
not tried it yet.
So I don't know the reason for that. I suspect that I mean, because it's using so few third-party libraries, I suspect a native build for Linux of LedWorks 5. I think it would probably be really, really solid. I feel like that would deliver much better results than a Win32 build. But you know what you're saying is interesting, so I'll definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, I've
So
never.
are you going to be developing on Bazzite?
Huh?
I said, are you going to be developing this on Bazzite then?
Probably. I like it. I like they got me once I saw the classic Valve GUI color scheme. At that point, I was like, okay, I like
Well,
it.
it sends you all the information. It's a derivative basically of SteamOS essentially.
I thought SteamOS was based on Arch.
It's derivative. That's what I said.
But Bazzite is
There's
based
a
on
lot of stuff where
Fedora.
they copied features and stuff. Yeah, but there's a
No.
lot of stuff they copied over from it.
Yeah, and
It was
Fedora's
not-
Arch.
it's
Is it?
Fedora. Yeah, I was gonna say Fedora's Arch. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's only like Debian and Arch, and those are the two main grandfathers. There's probably others, but the main two are Arch and Debian.
And even Valve has contributed to the Bazzite project in some regards. So
Well, I mean, should I?
haven't really
Should
been-
I? Yeah. Team Proton in the future. That's interesting. I've never heard anybody like in the past. I've always heard like people wanted a native Linux build. I've never heard people actually requesting a Win32 build for Linux. That's interesting.
Well, that's the thing that I think we're kind of getting at here is I don't know how much experience you've had with experimenting with Proton, but when I got my Steam Deck, that was like the main thing I was doing was seeing all what it could do. And as Proton's been expanded and you can use various different Proton versions, and then through like Steam you can actually recommend which one is the best one for your product or for your engine or whatever else. It's very, very useful, and I've noticed using that layer sometimes, not always, but using that layer of Proton is sometimes way more efficient for reasons I don't understand.
Yeah.
Cyclone plays like a dream on the Steam Deck.
That is true, it does. It was a fun experience.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean that's definitely something to consider. Now, recently, so I created something called Ultra App Kit, and it's available for free on Steam. It's a GUI toolkit, and that actually runs on Linux and Mac and Windows, and it works really, really nicely on all of those platforms. So I do feel that I have hammered out a lot of the problems that probably other developers have not solved because they haven't been doing Linux. I actually have been doing Linux development, not continuously, but I've been doing it for quite a long time. I have quite a lot of experience with it. So that's interesting. I think we'll just have to try it and see.
So I take it this week you'll be experimenting then more with Bazzite.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Well, that's why I was asking. I was curious what you're going to be doing in the next week with it. You said you just installed it last night.
Yeah, but I install Linux all the time and I do nothing the next day.
No announcements have been made at this time. Is my official
Classic
answer.
Josh tease.
Well, I mean, it's like people don't understand that, like, the future, from my perspective, is not certain. Information is constantly changing, so I don't like to say things until I'm absolutely sure and I'm ready to do them. So I actually worked last week. We talked a lot about timing, and I actually got a. Okay, yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Okay, so we have a mode where the game loop and the rendering thread can run at different frequencies, and that's done by interpolating the results of the game thread, like you see here in this exaggerated example, and that allows you to have support low latency displays, which is about 75% of, about 75% of Steam users have a 60 hertz display. But with this approach, you can run your game at 60 hertz at the normal speed, and you can run your rendering thread at 240 frames per second and have smooth motion. And I talked about putting mouse look code in the rendering thread itself, in order to give you like super low latency mouse input. Now, of course, you can also just run both the game thread and the rendering thread at whatever speed you want. And this is actually preferable. The problem here is, like, this might not give your game code enough time to run, especially if it's a Lua game. So it's kind of like, this is the best case scenario. You might want to make this an option for the user if they have a fast CPU. But if they don't, this is a way that is almost as good. We just do the mouse look code right here, and then you still have super low latency. Now, because the camera orientation is being fed back to the game thread, and the game thread only runs at 60 hertz, this is not going to be perfect. I mean, it's not going to be like the best choice for like super low latency esports type things, but this is pretty good. This is pretty good for most games. And so last week I found some information on a way to do this. So Microsoft has a library called Game Input, and there's kind of an equivalent to this for Linux, I believe. It's like lib input or something like that. So what this does is it gives you low latency, high precision mouse input without going through the event system, which is really good. You can just fetch the current position of the mouse relative to its starting position. And it's multi-threaded, so it can be called from another thread. There's nearly all API functions are lock-free with strict performance guarantees while still being 100% thread safe. This makes them safe to call from time-sensitive contexts, such as render threads. That's exactly what we're doing. So, yeah, we finally have a way to get high-performance mouse input for games in a way that works well with renderers. So there's two downsides to this. One is you have to install the a thing. Let me show you. This is available on the beta branch right now, but you have to go to update your your existing Visual Studio projects. I already added it to the template, so if you create a new project, it'll just work. But for existing projects, you need to go to the Tools, NuGet Package Manager, Manage NuGet Packages for Solution, and then it brings you to this window. You go to Browse, you search for Game Input, and you click on this, and you check this box, and you press Install, and that will add this package to your project. This is required. Okay. The other issue is that this is not available on all copies of Windows. It wasn't on my machine until I installed it. There's a redistributable, but we have experience with those. We know all about that. So adding a required redistributable to the engine, that was definitely not something I wanted to do. Because sometimes even if you automate that install, sometimes it fails. Sometimes people have it turned off. So what I did is I made it so so there's a camera set mouse look command that turns this on. But if it relies on something called the game input service that has to be running on the machine. If it's not available or it's not running, then the engine will detect that and it will fall back on a conventional mouse look routine that's run in the main thread. And that will not use high precision mouse input. It'll just use regular like integer coordinates, but at least it'll work. And also what's really nice is I fetched the system mouse speed and I multiplied I used that to adjust the speed of the mouse look here. So in other words, typically and I see this in a lot of games. I just saw this in SCP 5K. As soon as I plugged in my high precision mouse, the mouse speed was like crazy fast, and I had to adjust the mouse speed. But with this, with what I did here, like it just uses the system mouse speed to adjust the speed of your looking. So that's actually really nice. So in other words, like whether it's running with conventional mouse input or it's running with high precision mouse input, it'll run the same on the same system just based on the system pointer speed. Blah. So that was a lot of words to say that mouse look is really, really good now on the beta branch. And I was using this in our game, and it's really nice because this like you can just barely, it works best. These kind of mice actually work best on a really slick surface. You don't actually like it doesn't work as well on a mouse pad type surface. It works better on like a really, really slick piece of plastic or something maybe. Yeah, I was just using. Huh?
Glass mouse pads.
Is that a thing?
Some people use glass.
Yeah, I like pulled back I have a big mat for the keyboard and mouse, which is really nice because it like keeps the keyboard in place. But I just like pulled the mat back, and then I was using this on the desk. I almost wanted to like spray WD-40 on the desk to make it even better. But it's really nice because like you just sort of like lean the mouse. It doesn't even feel like it's moving, and you can see like the camera just rotating very, very gently, like in a way that you never would be able to with integer mouse coordinates. I really like it. Yeah, we already have this implemented in our game like this, and I love it. It's just like Steven, like how much smoother did our game movement and timing get in the last few builds?
After the update in general, there's major improvements. I always noticed, and something that always bothered me about Linux before was there was always this like unfrequent stutter that could happen and wasn't always there. Now the game always runs smooth. Yeah,
it was bugging me too. So Yeah, it's really
I
nice.
fought that with Cyclone too, so
Mm.
nice that it's finally solved.
Yeah, it bugs me like in Leadworks 4 it did that sometimes, and like just in other games, like in any games, like no matter what it's written in, that just bugs me when like there's a little like stutter. I really wanted to eliminate that, so I'm very happy that we've done that. And the mouse input is like it's like extremely smooth, and it's also like super responsive at the same time. So it's really nice. And now that we have the motion and everything perfectly, now I want to add in the camera. I have some ideas for like camera movement. And now I don't. And now that the underlying motion is perfectly smooth. Now I want to go in and add the camera movement. Okay. What mouse do I use? I just got, well, before I was using first I was using a Microsoft IntelliMouse, and then that broke, the sensor broke, and I was just using a standard Microsoft mouse, and now I just got this a couple days ago. This is the Razer Basilisk version 3. It's not the pro version, but it feels pretty pro to me. It's like 1,000 updates per second and like 2,600 DPI. I don't know what the pro version is, but this is like crazy. It's crazy good. I like the performance, and it's very comfortable. I prefer a mouse to have some weight to it, actually. So this is a little bit lighter than I would prefer. I like the mouse to be a little bit heavier, but also you can see it like constantly changes colors, which I kind of like it. The RGB makes it faster. RGB makes everything faster. Sorry I'm typing so much today. Have no voice. Hope you feel better soon. A lot of people are sick right now.
We got that super flu and the new COVID variant going around, so that's fun.
Yeah. You know, I haven't actually like been sick in the longest time.